Hello and welcome. I'm Joyce and here's what happened this week. Ching-te has just taken office as Taiwan's new president, but just a few days in, he is facing two huge tests of his leadership. China has launched massive military drills around the island, plus the legislature is in turmoil as parties fight, sometimes physically, over controversial legislative reforms. But we begin with Lai's inauguration on Monday. He used his inauguration speech to call on China to stop its military intimidation of Taiwan. Many international delegations were here for the ceremony, including representatives from Taiwan's 12 diplomatic allies and politicians from the US and Europe. Rick Lowert was there.
Pomp, pageantry and national pride as Taiwan inaugurates its fifth directly elected president. 64-year-old Ching-te of the Democratic Progressive Party, or the DPP, is making history. It's the first time any one party will hold the presidential office for 3 terms in a row since direct elections began.
此时此刻，我们不只是见证新政府的开始，也是再一次迎接得来不易的民主胜利。
Lai, who is also the preceding vice president, will govern with Bi Kim-hsiao as his VP. She's a former envoy to the US. Lai has big shoes to fill, taking over from widely popular Tsai Ing-wen, known for standing up to neighbouring China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan and has become increasingly belligerent over Tsai's 8-year administration.
我也要呼吁中国停止对台湾文攻武吓，一起和台湾承担全球的责任。 致力于维持台海及区域的和平稳定。
China has made its displeasure over a third DPP presidency known, labelling Lai a dangerous separatist. From this presidential office, Lai, like his predecessor, will have to balance defending Taiwan's sovereignty without overly antagonizing China. But he's facing a very different domestic political situation. While his party won the presidency in elections earlier this year, they lost control of the legislature. That's now in the hands of 2 opposition groups which disagree with Lai's stance on China, and he may now struggle to pass the bills he needs to make good on his national defence promises, particularly purchasing weapons from the US and funding domestic defence projects to keep China at bay. Outside his new office, a vibrant signal of this new president's values. Performances of Taiwan's unique culture watched by dignitaries from overseas. An optimistic vision of the Taiwan he hopes to foster during his 4-year term, but one that will require grit and determination under difficult local and global political conditions. Alex Chen and Rick Lowert for TaiwanPlus.
Just days after Lai took office, China launched what it called punishment drills in waters surrounding Taiwan, and they could be just the beginning of more large-scale exercises. John Van Trieste has the latest.
请你立即调整航向，如执意进入我24海里临街区，我方将采取驱离行动。
Taiwan's Coast Guard sends a warning to a Chinese ship taking part in what Beijing says are exercises meant to punish Taiwan. China claims Taiwan, and for the 3rd time since 2022, has surrounded it with warships. This time, it's unhappy about the recent inauguration of President Lai Ching-te, who it sees as an advocate for Taiwan's independence. President Lai, in just his first week in office, has struck a defiant tone.
我会和国军弟兄姐妹站在第一线，共同守护国家安全。此时此刻，国际社会正高度关注民主台湾，而面对外在的挑战与威胁，我们会持续捍卫自由民主的价值，守护区域的和平稳定。
Taiwan's military has set up a response center and sent fighter jets to enhance naval defense. It's also condemned China's moves.
它就是要达到它所谓的地区上认为他们有主控权，那这是非常不明智的行为。我们绝对不是一个麻烦制造者，但是大家可以看得出来，今天的麻烦制造者就是中共。
Like previous drills, these Chinese moves have had a limited impact on civilian life. Chinese ships have stayed over 24 nautical miles from the coast, outside Taiwan's contiguous waters. But some military analysts worry these drills may not be like the maneuvers Taiwan's grown used to.
蛮类似全面大规模入侵的可能的假想太一样的一种演习，所以它包括可能会需要夺取制空权、制海权、制电池权，甚至制太空权。
And it isn't just Taiwanese officials on edge. Japan's chief cabinet secretary says Tokyo and allies like the U.S. will remind Beijing of the importance of stability in the Taiwan Strait. And the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command says it's important to take the Chinese president's order to be ready for an invasion of Taiwan by 2027 seriously. But it says a war is not imminent and is avoidable. Still, China's ongoing exercises suggest tensions in the Taiwan Strait are not going to ease anytime soon. Kama Xu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's defense ministry says that 49 Chinese military aircraft and 19 naval ships took part in the exercises. The ministry says most of China's warships and military aircraft were operating west of Taiwan in the Taiwan Strait. Beijing says the drills would last until the end of Friday in these 5 areas. Taiwan's military also reported about a dozen Chinese Coast Guard ships operating near the outlying islands of Jingmen and Matsu. The military has scrambled aircraft and deployed missile defense systems in response to the drills. Now on to the challenges Lai is facing on the domestic front. Lawmakers were back in the legislature on Friday to vote on controversial reforms that have split the country. Rick Lauert explains.
A display of its disapproval. China sends military ships to surround Taiwan just days after the island nation inaugurated a new leader. Beijing claims sovereignty over the self-ruled country and sees its new president as a dangerous separatist for espousing Taiwanese democracy. These drills, Beijing says, a punishment for Lai's inauguration speech.
我们也要向世界宣告，民主自由是台湾不可退让的坚持，和平是唯一的选项，繁荣是长治久安的目标。
Despite winning the presidency for his Democratic Progressive Party, or the DPP, Lai now faces a hostile legislature in the hands of more China-leaning opposition parties. They took their seats weeks before Lai's inauguration and have been rushing through controversial reforms that would allow Parliament to investigate government officials and citizens, which leaders of main opposition party, the Kuomintang or KMT, say will bring greater accountability.
What we want to achieve is to, as I said, to consolidate and refine our democratic system. So we wanted to say a better check and balance, a more balanced executive versus legislative power.
Disputes in the chamber have descended into violence. Lai's ruling DPP accuses the opposition of stifling debate and not following parliamentary procedures, and say the reforms could make Taiwan more vulnerable to Chinese aggression.
All these pro-China legislators who visit China pretty often, they could initiate this kind of investigation and putting some sort of pressure on people who dislike China. So that's why I think the democracy might break with this bill.
Public opinion is also split. There have been large street protests supporting both sides of the legislature. And the Chinese military drills, continuing for a second day, have put this sensitive region on edge.
Lai has a very difficult task, but the first year I'd expect him to be very severely tested, and I guess what he needs to do is to show both people in Taiwan and also the world that he's able to handle stress, that he's not going to crack under pressure.
Lai is sticking to his guns and refusing to flinch in the face of Chinese aggression. He's promised to push ahead with bolstering national defence, putting Taiwan's resolve on display. But with his leadership facing challenges both at home and abroad, less than a week into the job, this new president is already having to prove his mettle. Chris Ma and Rick Lauert for TaiwanPlus.
The Foreign Ministry is downplaying concerns that Taiwan's relations with its last diplomatic ally in Europe are in danger after the Vatican said it wants to open a permanent office in China. Chris Gorin explains.
The Vatican's ambassador to the Philippines, Archbishop Charles John Brown, with President Lai Ching-te after his inauguration on Monday. Lai says the relationship between Taiwan and its last diplomatic ally in Europe is strong.
这几年来，台湾和梵蒂冈持续透过各层级的相互访问，增进彼此的情谊。
However, on the same day, Vatican officials said they wanted to open a permanent office in China. The move would signal a massive upgrade in the historically difficult relationship between China and the Holy See. And China, for its part, expressed openness to furthering ties.
我们愿同梵方共同努力，推动中梵关系不断改善。
With relations between the Vatican and China improving, some in Taiwan have worried that they might lose yet another diplomatic ally. When Lai Ching-te's predecessor Tsai Ing-wen took office 8 years ago, Taiwan had official diplomatic relations with 22 countries. And as Lai's term begins, that number is now just 12, and the Vatican is Taiwan's sole remaining ally in Europe. But for the moment, current and former diplomatic staff say there's no need to worry.
我方了解，教廷盼促进中国天主教徒拥有信仰自由与权利，在近期台梵互动上，与教廷高层互动良好，彰显台梵邦谊深厚。
即使他设立一个办事处，离真正的要建交还是有一个相当的距离。最基本的原因就是大陆没有宗教自由，他最主要就是要让有信仰天主教的人能够过一个好的信仰生活，希望跟中共的政权
Religious freedom groups like ACN International say the prospects for improved religious freedom in China remain poor. In its relations with China, the Holy See may have to weigh the benefits of gaining access to its millions of followers there against the risks of working with a regime which aims to minimize its influence. Chris Gorin and Devin Tsai for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's new premier headed to eastern Taiwan to survey quake recovery efforts. He's promised to help residents rebuild their lives. But the tourism sector, which is crucial to the region's economy, says it's being left out. John Van Trieste reports.
Just 3 days into the job, Premier Zhuo Rongtai is in Hualien in eastern Taiwan inspecting earthquake damage. It's been nearly 2 months since a magnitude 7.2 earthquake toppled buildings, cut transport links, and pummeled the region's economy. People who've lost their homes are keen to let the premier know that whatever assistance they've gotten isn't enough.
自己要拆除要8000万的费用，住户已经身上都背了房贷了，他怎么去抽出这8000万的费用来拆除？根本就不可能。
Premier Zhuo says the government will ask banks for help, and he's assured residents it will be a priority for the new administration.
国家就是你家，政府就是你的后盾。我们一定要让所有的核定计划项目迅速的加强、加快它的速度。
But not everyone is reassured. The earthquake has been catastrophic for hotels, a mainstay of the economy in this scenic region. Some are destroyed, and those that have survived have seen bookings plummet as tourists are scared off. Aftershocks continue, including a magnitude 5.2 tremor that hit during the premier's visit. But unlike private homes, hotels can't get financial help to pay for costly structural inspections.
很多都建议是希望能够中央是不是可以专案来协助这些旅馆或饭店业者来做一个耐震评估，好，那也能够补助了，好，让他们知道说这个饭店的状况，好，可以做进一步的修缮跟补强。
都是一笔不小的支出。我们是希望在推动这些耐震的详细评估以及建筑物的建物补强的时候呢，从地方到中央都可以给予我们，比如说经费上面的支援，或者是一些技术上面协助的支援。
Ensuring a smooth recovery for Hualien is one of Lai Ching-te's first tests as president. Although his premier says it will be a major focus of the administration, Hualien's tourism industry expects more than it's seen so far. Eason Pan and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching. Here's what happened. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or our social media for more of our stories. Finally, we leave you with more highlights from Taiwan's presidential inauguration. I'm Joyce. Take care and see you next time.